talk about the history of domestication.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much do you know about the history of domestication, would you say?
Not that much. A few broad strokes, I guess.
Okay, well, first of all, do you know the first animal to be domesticated?
Was it the dog?
Yes, that's correct. The dog is like pretty much almost definitely the very first animal domesticated by a wide margin, because we domesticated dogs before we domesticated plants. Like when we were hunter-gatherers, we were hanging out with our dogs and they were helping us as hunting companions before we ever thought about settling down and making society.
Yeah, that makes sense,
So
I guess.
Dogs we're like this with dogs. I can't come across the podcast.
She's
Sorry.
joining her fingers together
To mean that we are one. Yes.
Yeah. I guess it would make sense that we domesticated them before we started farming and agriculture. That is an interesting fact, though. That's something you'd see on one of those pop science websites, except it hasn't come out yet. They're too busy saying that sharks are older than dinosaurs.
Right. Oh my gosh, I was listening to this woman, these people the other day, and they were talking, and she was talking about how she loved dinosaurs or something, and they were talking about how they both had keychains with dinosaurs on them, and then the first one was like, yeah, mine's a pterodactyl. I was just like,
oh no.
I wanted to turn around and say something. I was like, do you really love dinosaurs? But I did not.
For the listeners, why is that? Why does that make you cringe?
Oh, because a pterodactyl isn't a dinosaur. It's just a reptile.
Yeah.
So it would have been more appropriate to have a chicken on her keychain.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how many domesticated animals can you list? Or what do you think were some of the earliest ones? Just whatever you think.
Before that, I did glance through this, but I've forgotten most of it. But I think it's important. Can you say what you mean by domesticate? Because it seems like it's a broad term.
So yes, in this, I did make a lot of notes about this. And when I say domesticated, I just mean have been we keep them around us. And this can be in various degrees. So dogs, we've been carefully breeding them and they're very faithful and they're not very dangerous to us. There's that end of the spectrum. And then there's just captive breeding a fish that doesn't care one way or another. And then there's also just animals that we keep around us that are very violent and could possibly hurt us, because they're not our friends, basically. But I'm also including that in my domestication talk, because they're animals that we control in some way.
Yes. So that would be alligators and crocodile farms.
Right. But I don't mean zoos. I guess we control animals in zoos, but...
Oh.
Right. Animals that provide a benefit beyond people looking at them. So really, domestication is a very huge and also unclear spectrum because, you'll see that there's a lot of different flavors of domestication. So what are some animals you can name that have been domesticated?
So earlier ones, I'm guessing the horse was reasonably early?
Yeah,
as in thousands
pretty
of
early.
years ago?
Yes, the horse was 5,500 years ago, about.
Okay. And aren't cats 4,000 years or something like that?
Cats are longer. Cats are 10,000 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So we seem to have domesticated cats pretty much as soon as we started farming, because we had all this grain and we needed something to get rid of the rats. But this is, again, it's a spectrum, because how much of it is the cats were just there and how much of it is the cats wanted to be around humans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a mutually beneficial versus the humans actively.
And in some ways, could you say that cats are fully domesticated today, considering that they can easily go out and feed themselves, as we've seen? Maybe some of them are more domesticated than others, right?
Yeah, it's true. What else is it? I know that some of the early birds, I guess, for farming, so geese and fowl and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a big debate. We talked about it earlier on this podcast that one study found geese were domesticated earlier than chickens. It said that domesticated geese bones were found 7,000 years ago from that time, and chickens were, the only evidence is that they were domesticated 5,000 years ago. But then when I looked up a whole bunch of articles and Wikipedia and stuff about this today, it was all saying chickens were 10,000 to 7,000 years ago, and geese were 4,000 years ago. It's actually a big fight. It's a big debate. Geese versus chickens. What came first, right?
Yeah. Geese versus chicken fanboys.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just like talk about some of them. So right after dogs, the next thing we domesticated were plants. So some of the first plants we domesticated were lentils, rice, wheat, coriander, and figs. So if you're trying to go for a paleo diet, paleo was before that, before farming. If you're going for a post-paleo diet, I'd recommend lentils, rice, wheat, coriander, and figs.
Do you want the Neolithic diet?
No, it's not Neolithic, right? Farming started. Was it?
I thought it was late Stone Age, isn't it?
Anyway, those were animals to help us on the farm. So that would be goats, sheep, cattle, and pigs. Then came cats. Then we started keeping like geese and chickens. Around this time, 7,000 years ago, while Egypt and China were domesticating geese and chickens, in Peru, they seem to have started to domesticate the guinea pig. It's interesting when I was reading this timeline how some places started so much earlier than other places.
Yeah.
Just because of the necessity of like, some people were living there for a long time while other populations were still traveling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then there's the water buffalo. Then horses are actually pretty late comparatively, but they're not really for farming. You know what I mean? They're just for transportation. So they're not as big of a need as the other ones. Then we have like honeybees 5,000 years ago, reindeer, the silkworm. Now we're starting to get into what uses can we get out of these animals that we hadn't thought of before, which would be like the silkworm. Pigeons, elephants were about 4,000 years ago. And one of my favorite ones is the cheetah 4,000 years ago, which it's one of those like, how domesticated was it, right?
Yeah, because there's like the idea that they were pets or close to being pets.
So another thing that people define domestication as is when the animal has a marked change. So like dogs look totally different than wolves.
Right.
But cheetahs, I don't think they looked totally different than wild cheetahs. They didn't develop a cuter voice or cuter ears or a smaller size. So it's possible that they weren't fully domesticated and just somehow tamed.
It's kind of like today when people have exotic pets in their home, not really domesticated. They're just slightly tamer, maybe.
Right. Then we have like llamas and alpacas, as I said already, ferrets, fallow deer. 3,000 years ago, we decided to start domesticating the leech.
Lovely.
For medicine. We also domesticated the cochineal. It's an insect, and we used it for carmine dye, like the red lake color. That was 2,500 years ago in Central America. Turkeys were quite recent. They were 2,000 years ago in Mesoamerica. So again, this shows like geese and chickens were way earlier than turkeys. Do you remember I saw one thing that people in the plains of North America, they were saying we domesticated horses as well. It's just that they all died out and then new horses came. There have been claims about that. Maybe it wasn't full domestication. Maybe it was keeping in a pen to eat. So anyway, turkeys might have been really late or not. I don't know. Rabbits, snails. Apparently the Romans domesticated snails.
Why don't I see that? Roman memes, they keep popping up on my Facebook.
Big snail fans. Then Japan starts getting into like domesticating things. They domesticate the cormorants, the koi. Yeah, there are some that are very interestingly Japan specific. China is really into, at this time, domesticating a bunch of whatever they can domesticate for pets or for food or whatever. Like they domesticated a special kind of sparrow, the Java sparrow. Japan and China both domesticated the cricket just for fun. And apparently they did cricket racing. China also
heard of that.
Goldfish racing as well. Yeah. Then we get into like for scientific use, lab rats, mink, which are science and fur. We also have like the rise of lots of companion animals, like all sorts of songbirds, etc. So I think like the further back you go, the more you can say they're truly domesticated, like dogs and wheat. And then when you get to like 100 years ago, is a hamster really domesticated? An alligator? Some places have domesticated alligators apparently. I don't think it's real because part of it is the amount of responsibility and trust we're placing in these animals. And another part of it is it just hasn't been long enough. Like, it hasn't been 10,000 years yet, so they haven't changed to trust us enough, you know?
Yeah, it's also that thing, I think you already said this, but like, would it survive in the wild on its own?
Well, a lot of these animals would not survive in the wild on their own. Like, they don't release bears that have lived in captivity. They don't release alligators that have lived in captivity. So I don't know if that's really the line for domestication necessarily.
Yeah, but I guess I mean more as like the species as it is now. Or let's say, does it have a counterpart in the wild that isn't a separate species or something?
Right. Yeah. So there's so many more animals than I really thought about that are considered to be domesticated in some way. It was surprising. And then I realized it's just because there's such a weird line, almost non-existent line between kept as an exotic pet and domesticated.
Yeah. Would an alligator really not survive in the wild?
I don't know. But there are like alligator sanctuaries. So if there are those, like, why wouldn't they just release them, you know?
Yeah, maybe it depends on the individual alligator. I don't know.
Some other things I found that were interesting was that jellyfish have apparently been domesticated and kept for food. Yeah. There's also all the snakes and salamanders and lizards and hawks and fruit flies and...
Ugh. Why
breed fruit flies for science and for food. For food for their animals. If you have a pet lizard or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Many levels. There's also domesticated mussels, domesticated fish. And when I say... most of these are just captive bred. What were you going to say?
You need to be careful with fruit flies, though. I can get out of hand very quickly.
Well, I have a friend who used to work in a fruit fly lab, and she had to, it had a lot of containment procedures.
Yeah, they probably had a detonate button just in case. Like
the Andromeda strain, you have to go in through several doors, and you don't want to bring them out. So, now that we have talked a lot about domestication, my question for you is, what animal would you want to fully domesticate if you could?
That's a good question, especially now that we have such a broader definition.
I mean, what's an animal that could already be partially domesticated or something, but you could end up having it like a pet dog?
Okay.
Where you can train it and it won't hurt you and you don't have to keep it in a cage. Okay, now answer my question.
So fully domesticated, like as a pet, like a pet dog almost.
Yeah, like you can trust it completely and, well, I guess you can't even trust your dog completely, but you
That's true.
Like, it has its own personality, but not in a threatening way. It's gonna always be there for you, sort of thing.
Yeah, and this just happened, we'll say magically. Nothing unethical happened to get here.
Right.
I was thinking maybe like a grizzly bear or some kind of brown bear. Yeah, because they could play. I could throw stuff for it, could wrestle around with it.
That's cute.
And they already when I saw brown bears, they reminded me, because of course they're related to dogs. So if they weren't so dangerous, I think that'd be a good answer.
So my top answer for this was the fox. And some people might say foxes have already been domesticated. But I say to this, are they really? So the fox was started to be domesticated about 200 years ago. It was a project in Canada that has been moved to Russia. And there's this one place where you can go and get your domesticated fox in Russia. And I can't find out a lot of information about it. It's unclear how domesticated these are. I think they're sort of they'll pee in your house and it's going to really be stinky. And it's not a very great pet unless you have a lot of free space. So
yeah,
they're fully domesticated.
When we went to the wolf sanctuary, the guide was saying, because they had a couple of foxes, and he was saying that they're really bad pets because
I thought you said that about wolf dogs.
He said that about wolf dogs, but he also said it about foxes. Well, for different reasons. He said because foxes, if they like you a lot, they'll start peeing on you.
Right. So ideally, full domestication, they wouldn't do that. And ideally, I wouldn't have to buy it from a sort of more or less shady lab in Russia. I just think it would be really great. And think about, I know that Russia has bred a lot of different colors of the foxes, but if they were truly domesticated, think how many different patterns they could have. You could have a spotted fox, like a Dalmatian. You could have little ones and bigger ones, and then we could cuddle up. And I don't care. Maybe, I don't care. I don't really have a preference like that. I just want one that's really soft and nice.
I know yeah, a lot of people who like cats also really like foxes.
Yeah, that's your personal experience.
Yeah, I'm just saying because
Right.
I guess they kind of give off, even though they're dogs, they kind of give off a little bit of the cat vibe somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I know that you've met lots of people who fit that description. Yes,
Okay.
I would also. I mean, like, it's a very common thing to like
Yeah.
cats and also foxes. Like, you can say you're a cat person, but then someone will say, "What's your favorite animal?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm a fox." Like, well, that doesn't make sense, but it does to me. I actually wrote a list of a lot of animals I'd like to have domesticated. Ideally, if I can go for extinct animals, I definitely want a domesticated plesiosaur. I want to be able to like have a little enclosure in my backyard with the plesiosaur in it, and then when it's time, I get on the plesiosaur's back and we like go gallivanting in the ocean. That would be great. For a similar reason, I'd want a dolphin, a domesticated dolphin that loves me and is happy to be near me. I wrote chimpanzee in the sense that I want us to be friends. I don't want the chimp to be like my pet necessarily. I think if you could just fast track chimpanzee evolution so that we're equal species on the planet. Not really domestication. Yeah, think what that world would be like if you could get rid of humans wanting to kill things that threaten them.
Probably shouldn't say fast track evolution though, because isn't that like assuming that we're like the pinnacle rather than just being adapted to their environment?
I want to fast track their brain development and their motor development and their speech development.
I want to fast track getting them to calm down.
Yeah, they'll also be calmer because they'll have a philosophical mind. So that would be fun. And I would like to go back to the days of keeping a pet cheetah. I think that would be really fun. I'd like to have the cheetah, my pet cheetah, race your dog. Your dog would be very depressed.
Yeah, he's not the fastest. He's not even the fastest dog.
He thinks he's really fast. He thinks he's fast, doesn't he? Like when he races you, he's like, ha ha ha.
He purposefully slows down when he races me.
Yeah. So that would be really fun. And then the final thing I thought of that has never been really, as far as I could tell, domesticated in any way or kept in a lab or anything like that is a mountain lion. I think ever since I saw that mountain lion in the zoo, I've wanted to cuddle up with a big fluffy mountain lion and have its huge paws like I don't know. I want to touch its huge paws. So good.
This all reminds me of those scenarios that might be sort of make-believe or fabricated. I don't know. You know, like on the dodo where they're like, this black panther was rejected by its parents. It could never go back to the wild. There was no space in the zoo, so we just had to keep it as a pet.
Yeah. I think the difference there is that those are animals that are individually raised. You can't compare, you can't extrapolate to the species as a whole in any way. Yeah, like, I guess that would be the difference between that and domestication. Because you could have a singular mountain lion that likes you, but it's not like it's not like it has friends that are also going to be super into you now and that they're all going to hang out and then...
You go to the park and there's other mountain lions and they're all running up and playing with each other. That
would be so good though. And then the park is by the ocean and then all the dolphins come up and they're like, hello! That's my utopia.
And there's just like a chimp reading like a philosophical book on the beach. Getting involved.
He's like talking to his chimp colleagues and his human colleagues, and they're discussing the latest developments on the stock market. They're like, oh yes, I've decided to invest in Apple. Had a catchy name. They're smarter than that. I'm sorry, but yeah. So that would be fun, I think. But it is very bad. You shouldn't try to domesticate these animals by yourself, or maybe ever. And I think domestication is also more successful when the animals like clearly wanted it. Like I felt like the dogs wanted it, the cats wanted it, maybe horses. Well, I don't know how they feel about being ridden, but compared to like pigs, you know, I don't think they wanted to get eaten. Maybe they wanted all the food, and then so that's like I would say a sort of a less successful domestication in this way that I'm evaluating it. And then what other animals like I'm pretty sure gerbils. I used to have pet gerbils. I don't think they wanted to be domesticated at all. They're always trying to escape. So I was like, let me get out of here and jump as far away from you as I can. In that way, maybe snakes could actually be a candidate for like full domestication because they like being around us. They like the warmth. I'm just saying that snakes seem like they enjoy the process of domestication. And I think give it if we gave it 10,000 years with the same intense care that we gave to dogs, snakes would be totally different. Maybe not 10,000, that's a lot. Like, if given 5,000 years and we would have a fully domesticated snake, if they're not already fully domesticated, which is hard to say because I don't know it's hard to see what a snake is thinking.
But if you said gerbils aren't fully domesticated because they love escaping, snakes love escaping too.
Right, and so do dogs.
Do dogs love escaping?
I'm just saying that snakes like humans, and I think that they're like the modern comparison to what dogs were like back then, because snakes will seek us out.
Will they? Will a group of snakes follow us for food?
No, but a singular snake will wrap around you if you're warm.
Okay, you're the professional biologist. I'm just some weirdo.
My speculation that it's easier to domesticate animals that want to be there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm just wondering this.
You're just being annoying. You're barely domesticated as it is, but yet you wouldn't survive in the wild unless they dropped you on an almond, like wherever the wild almonds grow. They just drop you in the middle there, or cashews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have any other animals? Oh, wait. So the last set of questions is just what animal are you most glad we domesticated? What animal do you think maybe shouldn't have been domesticated? Just like it can be on a purely selfish level or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of them had a lot of impact on humans. Like horses, probably domestication of horses completely changed our history.
Right.
Was it for the better or worse of humans? I don't know for certain. Maybe for better.
I think humans who can ride horses are cooler than humans who can't ride horses, personally. For example, the Mongols were able to conquer many civilizations because of their horses. Right. But on the positive side, horses their mastery of horses gave many Native American people a fighting chance against the colonizers. So
yeah,
that's good.
I feel like people probably would have been conquered by other people would have been conquering each other regardless. Probably maybe not to the same extent though. So I guess if we went back in time and didn't domesticate them, then everything would be different. So that's sort of scary.
I want to see a what if movie about that.
What if we never domesticated horses or invented cars?
There's that movie about if the Beatles had never existed.
Yesterday.
It's like how all life changed. But this is way bigger.
Yeah, this is so much bigger.
Yesterday, the sequel, what if we'd never domesticated horses? It would be called Nay. Nay.
We get all the same cast back, the same director. And the interviewers are like, yeah, we're not really sure, but I guess we were contracted into doing this.
Right. Horsepower. It wouldn't be called horsepower. It would be called probably oxen power. Anyway.
I wonder.
What about an animal? Let's see. For me, the animal I'm most glad we domesticated are cats, because I think cats bring so many people joy, and the cats are like having a good time not having to hunt. So I think that's really good for them, but not the cats that are feral. Boo to them. Yeah, but I feel like happy house cats are a very good outcome of domestication. And what about you? What animal do you think shouldn't have... what animal do you think shouldn't have been domesticated? One animal.
One?
Or
whatever
you want.
Whatever one had the least benefit and the most suffering to the animal. Because you could say rats, but then there's probably a lot of benefits to humans, so it's sort of tricky.
Well, rats were originally domesticated, as far as I can tell, for labs, which that's really... They're not... Oh, you're saying you don't think they should have been domesticated. You're saying they're your answer?
Well, I'm saying, is it like lab mice and lab rats probably have helped a lot of discoveries to help humans?
Oh, yes.
Then they suffered, so it's... I don't know, that one's tricky. I'm trying to see which one suffered but didn't help anyone.
My answer for this is mink, because not only have they suffered for maybe some meat and maybe some science, mostly they're just kept in captivity for like no reason. Plus they got COVID and they started dying, and they also are an invasive species and they're hurting other animals in Europe. And this is like all for nothing. It's so pointless to me. So I would say mink is my answer.
Yeah, I guess mink is the best.
Yeah, but also there's like the animals that they're small pets and they're not doing anything. Like, they're just for kids to enjoy keeping a pet, which would be like hamsters and goldfish. I think hamsters and goldfish, when I compare the happiest goldfish in a bowl to the happiest dog, there's a huge difference there in how we treat pets. So I think that's sort of a pointless pet.
Maybe if you had a pond for your goldfish, but how many people have ponds?
Oh, I have a pond for my goldfish, but I don't know how happy they are.
Probably happier than ones in the bowl.
Well, they're very terrified of snakes and birds. So, but I think all fish are terrified of snakes and birds.
Yeah. Well, I thought your fish weren't terrified, and that's why they're getting eaten by them.
Lately, I've been trying to feed them and they like run away or they swim away. They're afraid. They have depression and anxiety. But I'm sure they'll be better when the plant growth comes back, because I think my dad just cleaned it and got rid of lots of the plant cover. Okay.